What's good, Internet? My name is Ryan. I'm a game and narrative designer. I've worked on titles like Jedi Survivor, Marvel Strike Force, and the recently announced Saros. Now, to me, I think design shouldn't be a black box, so I want to take y'all on a bit of a journey with me. On this channel, we're going to take popular characters and turn them into magic cards, and in doing so, I'll walk you through what the design process is like, explain why certain decisions might get made, that kind of stuff. Of course, there's some caveats to this. First, I have the luxury that an actual magic designer doesn't have. I'm designing in a vacuum. Most of the time, cards are designed as part of a set and have to exist within the confines of that set, which may limit mechanics or power. I'm not really worried about that though, so we're gonna have some fun, but we may play around with the idea of a set later. Second, and these are just my takes on the character. I don't know every detail about every character, so if I miss something, I'm sorry. And this will become even more true when we start taking some of your suggestions. I'm hoping these give you guys ideas on how to design your own cards, and I'll be happy to share the links of what I make on here in the description. Finally, we can't cover every magic design concept every episode, so we'll only be mentioning the ones that are most relevant to design ideas and rules in each episode. As this will be an ongoing series, that means the more you watch, the more you learn. So without further ado, let's dive into our first character. Since Star Wars is probably the biggest game I've worked on today, I figured that'd be the best starting point. So we're going to go with Cal Kestis as our first design. So let's talk about Cal. He was a youngling during Order 66, training under his master Gerald Paul when the clone troopers turned on them. He barely escaped with his life after tapping into some latent force abilities. Unfortunately, though, his master met his end. Now, years later, at the start of Fallen Order, we find Cal's mostly cut his connection to the Force, or at least blocked himself off. He does have one notable ability, which is psychometry, or the ability to touch an object and see into the past, and this will be relevant later.
It was after boggling eggs and the pack fought back.
Over time, with the guidance from Seer, another Jedi who has blocked themselves off from the Force, Cal remembers his abilities, eventually defeats the second sister of the Sith Inquisitors. By the time we get to Jedi Survivor, Cal is a full-fledged Jedi Knight with the skills to back it up, and I don't want to go too far into spoilers, but he masters multiple Force telekinetic abilities, including an air dash, several lightsaber forms, and by the end of Jedi Survivor, he even taps into some of his rage, getting close to the dark side, making him a true force to be reckoned with. So with a character like this, where do you start your design, right? The first problem you'll run into immediately is that Cal has a broad set of skills and lots of relevant story moments to choose from. As a designer, one of the most important things you can do is actually limit yourself. Blue sky ideas and designs can be nice and fun, but when you start planting flags in the sand and making constraints, that's where you'll find the real work begins. So let's go back to Cal. I mentioned earlier that he had a psychometry ability. I did mention that this is quite a rare force ability, even in Star Wars canon. So we'll be working with that and try to get the idea of him being a duelist somewhere in there as well. So now we have our two flags, right? We're going to go with psychometry and some dueling. Let's turn to magic. There are a couple elements of a card we have to consider. So you've got casting costs, power and toughness, rarity, card types, super types, and of course the ability. For me, I like to consider the casting cost last, at least for this card. An actual designer may be given the cost as a constraint and say something like we need a 5-drop black spell to round out this draft archetype or something like that. But for today, we're going to work backwards and start with the ability. So first up are his keywords. For those new to MTG, keywords are abilities that are so ubiquitous that you can slap the word on there and most players know what they mean. As a duelist, we can use several abilities to represent this: prowess, first strike, or today's pick, double strike. I think First Strike would be more balanced, but since Cal does wield a double-sided lightsaber, I am going to go with Double Strike. It also splits into two, giving him two weapons. On the defensive side of things, Cal can defend blaster bolts and incoming strikes, so you want to represent that with something like Hexproof or Ward. Hexproof is something I'd want to use sparingly, and it seems Wizards agrees with this as well, as they lean more toward Ward in recent sets. So we'll give him something like Ward 2, again, for the double-sided lightsaber reasons. So Cal's psychometry works by touching an object and recalling its past. Luckily for us, magic has a mechanic centered around the past: sagas. I know they were recently used for summons in the new Final Fantasy set, but we're going to stick with the traditional idea here: an enchantment that tells a story over several turns before going away. Cal, of course, is not a saga, but what if he can grab one? So for this next ability, we'll say when Cal enters the battlefield, he grabs a saga for your deck. And this is already starting to shape a color definition. The reason for this is that Wizards usually delegate certain abilities to certain colors on a primary, secondary, and tertiary basis. So Cal will likely need green or white in the casting cost, as these colors are the colors that most commonly search for enchantments. Likewise, Double Strike is a primary ability for white, and Ward is a primary ability in blue, plus the lightsaber is usually shown as blue. So we'll say his colors are blue, green, and white, given the abilities we've given him. And maybe we'll need some generic costs, but we'll circle back to that once we're done with the abilities and see how much we can balance this out. Speaking of being done though, this card does feel like it's lacking. Since we want to synergize with sagas, let's look at cards that already do that. Narcy, Fabled Singer, comes to mind. She's a green, black, and white human bard that draws cards when enchantments leave and drains health when a saga is finished. And I think we can take that mold and do something similar with Cal here. But since we're in Bant, we'll want to change it up. Life Drain is mostly a black or black-white ability, so let's lean into our green and say he gets bigger instead. So we'll say something along the lines, when a saga's last chapter is done, Cal gets +X, where X is the saga's mana cost. And we'll spice it up and maybe give him Trample too. And now this card is feeling quite powerful and quite complex, so that pushes us into a bit of a higher rarity. I couldn't safely cast this as a rare, but I could say this is a mythic, which is close to what Narcy is as well as a mythic, so that works out. As for power, he's got Double Strike, and we want to keep the casting cost down to make him playable, so we'll probably keep his power down. Right now I feel 2 feels about right, and we don't want him to die easily as this is an iconic character, so we'll put him just outside of lightning bolt range with 4 toughness, although the ward is also doing some work there. As for creature type, he's obviously a legendary human, very much a warrior, and I'm going to do something I don't want to make a habit on in this channel. I don't want to invent creature types all the time, but if a Star Wars set did exist, Jedi would absolutely be a creature type, so we'll call him a human warrior Jedi. Now let's wrap up the casting costs. We know he's Bant, but he's going to be a bit more than 3. Considering his ability to kill with commander damage, I think it's appropriate to say at least Bant +1. I could see an argument for Bant +2. If we went up, I'd want to push that ward maybe to 3 instead of 2. However, for the sake of this video, we'll leave him at 4. And that's Cal Kestis, our Jedi survivor. Last thing we need to do is slap some flavor text on there. Bam! This is our first magic card. I threw a lot out there, so tell me what you guys think. Did I nail it? Does it need work? If there's concepts you think I should walk through on future episodes more clearly, leave that in the comments. Send me a like and subscribe, and I'll keep making more of these. And of course, you can find a link to this card in the description. Thank you for watching.